What is the most NSFW thing you've actually done at work? Story 1. When I was a teenager, I worked at a small call center that primarily focused on debt collection. We were a small office in a large but mostly empty office building. The floor above us was completely empty, so I used to go up there and smoke cigarettes in a little overgrown courtyard area. One day my boss's daughter caught me and asked for a cigarette. A week later, we were regularly in an old abandoned corner office. This went on for like 2 months until we all got laid off, then I never heard from her again. Right before I got laid off, a bunch of us got RC cars and raced them around another empty office space because we didn't have any work to do, so for like 2 weeks I was just playing with RC cars and blowing loads. Funnest job ever. Story 2. I once picked up a work computer that belonged to one of my colleagues. The mechanical hard drive had started to throw errors, so we had the data moved over to an SSD. While I was paying for it, the tech was shuffling on the other side of the counter, seeming uncomfortable. Seemed odd but he never said anything. When my colleague turns the computer on, we quickly see it's not his hard drive, as the background is now 2 old guys with their decks out. I sweep up the computer and off I go back to the repair shop. I told them it looks like they'd copied the wrong hard drive over. The guy looked really relieved, as I guess Mr. Gay Sr. had probably come in asking why his computer was full of sales software. Story 3. Had my fellow manager after we had locked up for the night in a booth in the dining room. We were still going at it when the owner let himself in the back, poured himself a drink, and went back into the office to do some, businessy stuff. We slowly got dressed and tried to sneak out, but the office door was open. He just looked at us for a few seconds, shook his head, and said, "Have a good night. See you tomorrow." Story 4. Girlfriend gave me a in the freezer when we first got together. It was just us working that night and the closing managers already left. She pulled me into the freezer and just dropped my drawers. Being the law-abiding citizen I am, I just enjoyed the moment. Edit. For those wondering. Yes, I am still with the same woman. It was 5 years ago. She was the best friend helping me get through a toxic ex. Also, she wants me to tell everyone whipped cream was involved. Story 5. I was working as a shuttle driver for an apartment complex a few years ago, and there was this receptionist that I was having some flings with every now and then. One nice summer day, I was parked at the start of my route, front of the main complex where they have the leasing office and community center, and as I'm reading my book, Under the Volcano by Malcolm Lowry. Highly recommend it. The receptionist bangs on the driver door of my shuttle van and says, "Whip out your I just got a new job." She proceeds to unzip my pants and give me a very good time. My dumb ass puts the book behind her head thinking that if I just cover her head, no one is going to know what is happening. She is standing outside of the vehicle and the main street is behind her. My brain didn't take that into consideration at that time, but we never got caught and I had a very relaxed rest of my day. Story 6. Got a blow from a random girl. I was working in a windsurfing station. There was a family there, mother, father, son, and daughter. She was 21, I was 19. I started talking with her while the rest of the family were surfing in the water. We ended up making out inside the storage area for the boards. She gave me a she swallowed my load, and we just went back to the beach. Her parents came back and hugged her, having no idea of what had just happened. Story 7. Throwaway BC, yeah. Tell doctor I had with a coworker at the workplace. I worked at a store as a straight-out-of-high-school job. I was getting ready to quit. I met this girl who at the time worked there but just got accepted at a way better job somewhere else as well. We jokingly flirted with each other a lot. Teenager hormone-type things. This store was open late, which only had around 4 people there at 10, and it closed at midnight. I was scheduled off at 10 that night. She was there till 12. I made a joke about walking her back to her car to protect her from any kidnappers or something silly. She fired back that I would the only one allowed to kidnap her, so I knew there was something brewing between us. Instead of heading home, I knew she hadn't taken her break yet, so I sat in our break room, which, coincidentally, had no cameras except the ones up and down the staircase. An added bonus was also locked office-type rooms for printers and extra materials. She took her break at 11, during which the only other person on the clock is mandated to stay at the front of the store for customers to check out ECT. She thought it was cute that I stayed to talk to her, and being committed to my word about protecting her in the parking lot, walking her to her car. After a few hugs and whispers into each other's ears, we somehow ended up in one of the locked offices, taking our clothes off and kissing each other. It was very exciting and heart-pumping, to say the least. The aftermath made us turn into detectives, scrubbing the floor, desks, or any areas and cleaning it to the utmost degree of cleanliness to ensure our tracks were covered. We've been together for 3 years now. Stupidity. Story 8. Not the most NSFW I've done, but I did get caught. I worked in a nightclub that they were reconstructing. During this time, they hit a pipe and flooded the main floor, ruining all the cameras in the process. In the liquor closet, they put a trail cam I thought was to scare construction workers because everybody stole bottles. Everyone hated the owners. So I'm in the liquor closet with the barbacks buying some party drugs when one of the barbacks says maybe y'all should do this somewhere away from the camera. I said, nah, f that shit. F the managers. F the owners. They aren't gonna do shit, and if they want me to put up with their stupidity, I need drugs. 3 weeks later, the bar manager comes up to me and says, hey, just a heads up, if you're gonna buy drugs at work, don't do it under the only camera that records video and audio. Story 9. A friend of mine worked for a janitorial company back in the day. One of his accounts was a grocery store. He'd let himself in long after the store closed and all the employees left, so he could mop and wax the floors. One night he walked into the back room of the store to turn the lights on. The produce manager was sitting there in the dark at his desk with his pants and underwear down to his feet. Tried to say he was giving himself an insulin shot in the dark with his out. Pretty fast thinker to be able to come up with any excuse at all. He should have added that he has a needle fetish and insulin shots always make him hard. Story 10. I used to work at Radio Shack and had a coworker whom I always flirted with. One day, it was just the two of us in the back room stocking some shelves. She was on a step ladder to reach the top shelves, and I was handing her the boxes while standing behind her for support. She suddenly squatted and put her whole on my face, then proceeded to unbutton her pants and told me to eat her out from the back while she was still standing on the step. We ended up banging all over the boxes, and I lasted a solid 8 mins. Very proud of that one, TBH. Story 11. In 1988, I was 19. It was a Japanese video game company. There were 7 Japanese businessmen running the company, 3 to 4 American salesmen, 20 women, and me. I was called over the intercom into a female manager's office. She was in her late 20s, early 30s, hot. She asked me to shut the door and lock it. I did. She then moved a piece of paper on her desk to reveal 4 lines of the devil's dandruff. And we did them, and we had on and against her desk. Then I left, and we acted like it never happened. Story 12. A while back when I worked in food service, there was a girl who was a big flirt. At the end of the night, when we were doing our individual checklists, she would sneak away from everyone and we'd make out in the restroom. That escalated for weeks until one night as I was locking up and everyone had left, I saw car lights out front. She had left, waited until everyone else was gone, then came back and we in the restroom. Obviously, there were no cameras in the restroom, but if anyone had bothered to check cams, it still would have looked pretty suspicious. I suppose when you're in your 20s, you're not really thinking about that, LOL. Story 13. I my manger at my old job. She was hitting on me for a while. One night everyone left and I tried to sneak out the back so she wouldn't see me leaving. She caught me and asked if I finished the numbers for the day. I said no, and she walked me back to my console. She gave me the eyes when we were close to the computer together. So ID came in, I risked it, and grabbed her inner thigh. She was wearing a skirt. It was like 2 magnets getting close. We just went at making out. I went to hit it from the back on my small, like 3-foot desk. I've fantasy jerked off 1,000,000 times before to this very situation, LOL. And when I went to go in, she grabbed my and put it around her butt, and her exact words to me were, "That one's for my husband, you better have the other." Honestly, I wish it never happened, because I've never been able to get close to the hotness with other people since. And it's been like 4 years. P.S. She got fired like 2 weeks later because her husband, her boss LOL, found out about another dude she banged at work. Story 14. So the place I used to work for, I was the tools guy when I really shouldn't have been. The office was in a bougie part of town, real classy, high-end sort of place, and we really shouldn't been in a place that didn't have storage. Well, we had to rent out a couple of storage units to hold all the incoming gear and equipment amongst other things. So I meet this redhead, and since I was the person who always arrived early, she and I would meet in the storage unit. A few times we did it on the project manager's desk and the director's desk. He rarely ever showed up. Those were great times. Story 15. A fair few years ago, like 30, I used to work part-time at a club whilst at university. Popped in during the day once with my GF just to say hi to a couple of the guys. Anyways, ended up in the actual main area, and being alone, my girl pulled me over to a dark corner and proceeded to give me a BJ. Turns out we're not as alone as we thought. We found that out by one of the DJs pointing all the club lights right on us.